Hi, and welcome to Open Arts, everybody. My name is Patty. I'm so excited to be hosting today. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. I'm really excited about today's program. We have Ashley and Sean Campos of the Barter Theater in Abingdon, Virginia on to learn all about the incredible work they're doing with the Barter for the last 15 years. So please stay tuned. But first, I would like to share a brief word about our sponsor, Unitex. Sing for Hope extends a special thank you to Unitex, a founding sponsor of Open Arts, for making this program possible. Unitex Healthcare Laundry Services is the largest family-owned and operated healthcare linen and uniform rental company in the country and has been serving the Northeast region for 100 years. Sing for Hope is grateful for their generous support. Like I said, I've been looking forward to today's conversation. Ashley and Sean Campos are debunking all of the myths of the starving artist and the big city artist, and I love this is great. So, without further ado, I would love to introduce my guests today. A native of Florida, Sean Campos has had the honor of performing for the last 15 years as a member of Barter Theater's resident acting company. There, he has portrayed an eclectic mix of characters, from Don Lockwood in Singin' in the Rain to Black Stash in Peter and the Starcatcher, Donkey in Shrek the Musical, to Athos in The Three Musketeers. He has served as fight choreographer for projects such as Sherlock Holmes and the American Problem, Richard III, A Streetcar Named Desire, and The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Sean comes from a musical family and is a proud first-generation Filipino-American. He and his wife Ashley have been married since 2006 and live in Abingdon, Virginia, with their son Max. Ashley Campos is an actor, choreographer, and fabric artist specializing in dance and intimacy choreography and costume design. She has had the privilege to serve in all of these capacities and more as a resident acting company member and current resident choreographer at Barter Theater, the State Theater of Virginia. Originally from Ringgold, Georgia, you'll correct me on my pronunciation later, Ashley. Ashley grew up dancing with the Civic Ballet of Chattanooga and attended Brenau University for dance and theater. Since arriving at Barter in 2006, some of her most treasured roles have been Velma Kelly in Chicago, Laura Wingfield in The Glass Menagerie, Ula and the Producers, The Mute in the Fantastics, and Judy Burnley in 9 to 5. Favorite shows choreographed include Sister Act, Shrek the Musical, and Elf the Musical. Please welcome Ashley and Sean Campos. Thank you guys so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having us. We're so excited to talk.
Yeah. I have heard so much about you, so I'm excited to learn more and to learn about the Barter Theater. So to get started and just get our listeners acquainted with you, I tell me how your performing careers started. Were you both actors from a young age?
I love to act up from a young age. No, I came into theater through singing first and foremost. My long story short, without going on a completely long diatribe, my parents came over from the Philippines in a 7-piece funk band. Is how they got their working visa here in the States. So I came through, growing up in my childhood was growing up in nightclubs because that's where they were playing. My mom sang with me until she was 8.5 months pregnant. So I came into the world of performance through singing. And then I really started developing that love for musical theater once I hit high school, because I was, like a lot of high schoolers, was very aimless and did not know, like, what do I want to do? And then we discovered this little thing called musical theater, a show called Little Abner, of all shows. Made me fall in love with theater. I guess it was meant to be, if that's the show that made you fall in love with theater, was Little Abner.
Well, they say that the music your mom listens to while she's pregnant matters. So that's you must have a funky side.
Honestly, the only music I really listen to is Motown. And anything from the 60s and 70s, essentially, with a little bit of 80s, and then I just kind of stopped from there.
As a Metro Detroit area native, I applaud that.
Yes.
Ashley, what about you?
My entry to theater was through the dance world. I started, like so many kids, so many little girls. My mom started me in ballet when I was 3, when I was really young. And I danced all the way up through high school. I actually went to college as a dance major. But I got bitten by the bug in high school to do musical theater. I loved the storytelling that theater had. I love to sing and act as well. So I just hopped on over to the musical theater department. There's a well-worn path between those two,
Sure.
between the two majors, I think. So I went to Brenau University and got wonderful training there. It's a school just outside of Atlanta in Gainesville, Georgia, and we work with Atlanta theater artists. So we got to work with people from Georgia Shakes and from the union, the Actors Equity community there. So I'm grateful for the training that I had there. Also at Brenau, regardless of if you were a performance major, you had to learn how to do everything. So that's where I grew up loving to sew and create things with fabric. From both of my grandmothers were seamstresses and stitchers. So that's a skill that I was really able to work on and develop in college. And it's continued throughout me with my career. So whereas I started out at Barter and professionally acting and performing, as we've moved on in life, and we have a son, Max, who you can see up over Sean's shoulder right there. It's given me a lot of flexibility to stay involved in theater. And as we'll talk about, Barter has given us a chance to scratch any itch in theater that we might have.
Absolutely. So how did you, for a lot of young artists, I feel like the only thing we know is to move to a big city, because that it seems like that's where all the jobs are sometimes. So how did you find Abingdon? What led you to the Barter Theater?
A very random audition. Ashley was finishing up her senior year at Brenau University. We were already engaged to be married, and I had gone to college in Miami and finished up and moved. Was kind of freelancing from city to city. I moved to New York for a little bit, and it was fun. The city kind of enveloped me with a different sort of lifestyle. I've heard you can make so much money, and the next thing you know, you're not doing theater, you're not doing the thing that you went to the city for. So I didn't, I realized that it wasn't my time. But we had a mutual friend who randomly was like, hey, Abingdon, Virginia is a 4-hour drive away. I'm gonna go drive and hit up their local auditions. Do you guys want to come with me? And
they were auditioning for Thoroughly Modern Millie,
right.
Specifically looking for the two, Asian roles that are in.
Well, we thought they were like,
Yeah.
how many Filipino or any Asian actors are they going to have in Abingdon, Virginia? So I went with the intention of like, oh, maybe I could play Bun Fu or Ching Ho in Thoroughly Modern Millie. And long story short, it's like I got the job, but not as one of the Asian guys.
I'll tell you, in the dance audition, Sean did a tour jeté and hit the ceiling, and the choreographer was like, "I'll take him."
Yeah. So how did that transition to becoming resident actors?
Just more and more responsibility. Ash and I were fortunate enough to both get the production. We got to be dance partners for Millie and got to kind of know the resident company in its present state and the artistic director. And the following year, it was, we had the conversation of like, are you interested in coming back? Would you like a little bit more work? So it was, they gave us a little bit more responsibility the following year in 2007. And then it seemed like a right fit for both of us. And they, being young at the time, were like, would you both like another contract, 2008, 2009? And of course, having the luxury of like not having to leave the significant other, getting a year's worth of work each contract, as opposed to trying to piecemeal 2 months here, 3 months there, 6 weeks over here, was really, really enticing. And quite frankly, which I'm sure we'll get into in more detail, Barter very much isn't. We want to take you out of your comfort zone. They started us out with like, you're dancers, so we're going to have you dance. Now we want to see if you can do something else. We want you to turn a specific shade of green or pale gray when we say this is going to be your assignment, and we want you to do this in front of a paying audience. So then it became, wait a minute.
I think that would hook me. That would, I want that experience of being put out of my comfort zone, and I think that goes for a lot of creative personalities. So what a cool opportunity.
Yeah, I think probably, whenever you go to a big city, it's very important to know, if you're a performer or probably a musician as well, it's very important to know your type or your brand. And that is certainly what we were initially hired for at Barter to do. But we we believe in the mission of what they do there. And between contracts there, I mean, our first year, I started working in the costume shop and Sean worked maintenance. We believed in the mission so much of what they did that we were like, whatever we can do to be here and be part of this community, we want to do it. So we really, it has been a mutually beneficial agreement. We hope, you know.
Sure, sure. So when I was reading your bios, I sort of chuckled because I was reading between the lines, and it seems like 2006 was a very big year for you guys. You got married in 2006, and you found the Barter Theater in 2006.
3 weeks later, we got married, and 3 weeks later, we started the contract for Thoroughly Modern Millie. So it was a, and that was your senior year, and I directed her senior thesis, and it was like, yeah.
And you touched on this, but a lot of, it's true that a lot of performers, especially if you're touring with shows, or you know, you might be getting great gigs, but they're taking you to other parts of the country, and you might not be with your significant other. So what a cool opportunity that you both are there.
We're a big fan of the local auditions for regional theaters. The
as
local,
opposed to
as opposed to
auditioning
the
in New
big
York City.
casting calls in the big
Sure.
cities. You just get a little bit more one-on-one time. That was certainly true for us anyways.
Yeah.
Sure. And hey, you get a road trip in.
That's right.
Exactly.
So wow, so resident actors for going on 15 years now, I think. I said this when I was introducing you guys, but you really are you're like single-handedly debunking I feel like so many stereotypes of the artist lifestyle. So I have to say thank you on behalf of all artists. But so tell us, so what is it like being a resident member of an acting company? What's the schedule like? What's your day-to-day?
It's fantastic for one. I mean, obviously the last few years have been a little more difficult to produce, given all of the circumstances. But, when Barter is in its, purest form, running a cajillion shows a year and running shows in rep, it's amazing. It was once described as an oasis of art, because you get, at any time you're working on 4 to 6 plays at one time. Some musicals, some Shakespeare, some Tennessee Williams. It's anything and everything. Now, granted that when you do get work that regularly, some of the cons can be I don't get to put my kid to bed every night, so because we are doing shows six days a week. So, there are, a couple of life sacrifices that you make, but luckily Max, he rolls with the punches so well. He's a theater kid, true and, tried and true. In a nutshell.
A typical season for Barter starts in January. Our spaces are dark. We run 2 spaces typically throughout the year. We've got a main stage space, which is it's like a traditional proscenium theater, about 500 seats in there. And then we've got our Smith Theater, which is like a thrust space, a 3/4 thrust space that's got about 200 seats?
About 250, 250 seats.
Yeah. So usually those 2 spaces are typically dark in January and February, but in January we do what's called the AFPP, which is the Appalachian Festival of Plays and Playwrights, and it's we focus on new work that's written by or about the people and stories from the Appalachians, which for our purposes runs anywhere from Florida to Maine, so and telling those stories. So it's a really wonderful time when we get together, and we do play readings. It's a series of readings and things, and audience feedback. So then whenever we get going, we usually get turning up around March or April. Rehearsals get started for things. We'll start usually a smaller rep of 2 shows for the spring, and then in the summer we start ramping up, and we have 4 shows going, at least 4. 4 shows for the resident company, and then additional ones from our player company, which is our intern Theater for Young Audiences company. So a member of the resident acting company is typically performing 2 shows and rehearsing 2 shows at once, which makes for a pretty wild schedule, as you can imagine.
Absolutely.
So we do that in summer, and then we also typically do that in fall. And then in the Christmas, a different set of shows for the fall. And then for Christmas, we run anywhere from 3 to 4 shows in the main space and out. Our Theater for Young Audiences company, the Barter Players, they usually do a school tour in the early part of the year, and they reach kids. They reach tens of thousands of kids all up and down the East Coast and some of the poorest communities that don't have any access to art. They bring it to them. So it's wonderful outreach. It can be a grind, but we are serving an audience that's hungry for it. So
yeah, it's an incredibly active theater. So Abingdon must really be. I mean, you make it sound like an arts town that they're really consuming all this.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a, what's beautiful about it is it's such a symbiotic relationship. The town itself, because it is like what is it now up to? I think we're up to 15,000 in the town.
Oh, is it? Were we even that many? I don't know.
Something like that. But with a town that small, and we have two main draws that bring people into the town, which is the Barter Theater and the Virginia Creeper Trail, which is like, it's beautiful, but in the cold weather, that's not really going to draw a lot of folks. But if Barter does well, the town does well. So, and that's all of the surrounding businesses, restaurants.
Yeah. We've got great restaurants in town, and there's a lot of tourist stuff in the area. It's a beautiful area. We're up in the Virginia Highlands in the mountains, so we pull a lot of groups. We pull a lot of people. I mean, we pull people from a pretty big region. It's so yeah, and having offering so many shows helps give different shows for people. They can take their kids to see a show in the morning. You can see as many as 5 shows in a weekend. Right? You can come and see 5 different shows in 2 days.
It's an incredibly active theater. So is Max like, is it like growing up in the circus? Is he at the theater ever? Is he
yeah, in our rehearsal spaces, thank goodness he's of the age now where he's much more self-sufficient. So he has spent many an hour in Ashley's office
or underneath my table in the costume shop, and everybody knows Max. We're grateful for the group of people and everything. Yeah,
and thankfully we have a lot of Barter babies, or Barter children now, because they're not babies, but several company members, be it on the acting side, the tech side, the administrative side, have children. So it is like very much like a big community.
Does he still get excited to come see you in shows?
Oh yes. Yes. Sean just played, we just did closed a production of Frankenstein, and Sean played the creature, and Max just loved it. He couldn't believe it. He came up with a version where he got to be a mini creature. So.
That's a good plot line. I like that.
Yes.
Yeah, he didn't realize how depressing it would be, but he wants to see everything. So I mean, for a 7-year-old kid, we've exposed him to a good bit of some pretty heavy arts. And but needless to say, his gears are always going. He has a million questions after a show.
I wondered if he gives you notes.
Not yet. Not yet. He will, I'm sure.
Because he's got the bug. He's already asking, when can I be in the show? I'm like, well, you're gonna have to start working on stuff and auditioning. So we will see. I don't know if my heart can take that. I'm already too emotional, and the thought of seeing my kid in a production for the very first time, tears of joy to my eyes.
Right. So I actually have a little clip, I think that sort of helps demonstrate your day-to-day. This is your 2019 production of Singin' in the Rain with Sean is Don Lockwood, right? And Ashley, you choreographed the show.
Assistant choreographer and assistant and costume design.
Okay. So is there anything else that you'd want to share about this promo clip before I share it?
It was a big, beautiful show that we were really proud of. It was, as far as big shows go, it doesn't get much bigger than Singin' in the Rain. And we are a fairly small theater, so we felt really proud that we didn't only pull it off, but it was a really beautiful production that we were proud of. So.
And I will say always kudos to Barter, because I mean, of course, theaters are doing this a lot more now. But the producing artistic director at the time even said, he's like, I've been colorblind casting Sean since 2006. So now, excuse me, but in 2019, not a lot of theaters were wanting a Filipino Don Lockwood, and Rick was like, I have to see you do the show before I retire. So I was very grateful for the opportunity.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I'll be the first to admit, in New York, we think we invent this kind of stuff. And yes. You're right. This has been happening at the Barter for that's absolutely incredible. All right, everyone enjoy. This is a clip from 2019's Singin' in the Rain at the Barter Theater.
The sun's in my heart, and I'm ready.
absolutely incredible. That musical is just it's bound to make you smile. There's no way to not smile while you're watching that. So here's what I'm thinking about while I'm watching that. I'm thinking about Abingdon, Virginia. You've been starring in shows for 15 years. Surely you guys are just like the heroes of Abingdon, Virginia. Do you get recognized when you're at the grocery store? Do you?
Yeah, there's no good answer for that, because if I say no, I would be full of baloney, and I would be lying. But then if I say yes, I get a recognition. I'm like a pretentious.
No, it's okay. We're here to celebrate you two.
And to be fair, there's only like 4 Filipinos in Abingdon, Virginia, period. And I happen to be the one that performs. So I'm like a polar bear walking around with like a ball cap down Main Street. So, it's chances are pretty good that people are going to be like, hey, are you that guy from the Barter? So,
How cool, though.
You know what's really wonderful, though, is that we have a relationship with the community.
Yeah,
Like we're friends with the guy who's our mechanic. We know him personally. So whenever you're, you know how it is. Whenever you're an actor and you're out gigging it a lot, whenever you're going to different places, it's hard to develop roots. It's hard to get a real sense of community. And this community has wrapped its arms around us, and we have done the same. So it's been a real joy to get to know the people here. And when you know the audience that you're serving, you serve each other in that way.
Sure.
So especially in these pandemic times, our community around here has just stepped up to help those of us who haven't been able to work as much or in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's incredibly fulfilling and rewarding to have a relationship with the people that you live with. So yeah, people do recognize us, but we're like friends with those people, though. You
talk about
that's incredible. That's the coolest energy for a community.
I mean, to talk about counting your blessings in a town like this. In the heat of the pandemic, when we weren't able to work, we would find random cards in our mailbox with like $100 in cash, $100 to a grocery store, because they were like, hey, we heard that you guys aren't able to work. I hope this helps. Like small town stuff like that you rarely ever get to have anymore. So it is a blessing to be able to have the relationship. And also with, our audiences connect so well with the resident company, because they've been trained with the way Barter works and running stuff in rep, to see like, oh, I get to see Ashley in the Glass Menagerie and then for a 2:00 matinee, and then I get to see her do cabaret that evening. And they get to develop that relationship and seeing all of the different sides that we get to bring to the stage, and their bond deepens after that.
Sure. I have to tell you, as a side note, if you ever need a side hustle, I feel like you guys could be the faces of like Abingdon tourism. Like you're selling me so well in Abingdon.
Sean is on. Sean has done an Abingdon tourism campaign.
Have you?
Before.
Yeah, you're selling me really well on it.
We did. They had.
You got to ride the creeper trail.
Yeah, do the creeper trail. Go get some food at some of the local restaurants. I'm like, wait a minute, you're gonna pay me to sit here and do fun stuff? I like the way you're thinking, Patrick. I need to get on that.
Yeah, listen, I feel like I want like a 3-day weekend there right now.
I know it.
We got great bed and breakfasts. So
Sounds good. I'll be there. I'll call you up. I'll see what's playing.
That's right.
So I wanted to ask you about working with your spouse. So you guys have been working together for quite a while now, and in a creative field where there's artist egos and everything. Is it always sunshine and daisies?
This is probably going to sound sickening, but yeah. Luckily, Barter very much, because of the resident company, you can't really come in with this like, all right, now I'm going to be the star, like that. People like that who come through, and which we've had, because we jobbed several people in, not to be a part of the resident company, but to plug holes that we need in shows. They don't last very long. So with that kind of being the core and the through line of like, hey, we're all in this together, there really isn't time for like, I'm not going to take that note you gave me, no, I want to play it differently. that's not baked into the pie of the resident company culture. So going into things, Ash has choreographed me several times in a show, and she'll be like, I'll pull out a move, and she'll be like, I appreciate the effort. Can you do it this way? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's ever been a big like, no, we see so differently on this topic. But please jump in here if I'm incorrect.
No, not it. I mean, it really is fun. Sean's my muse dancer. He's the dancer in my head when I choreograph. You know, I can't help it. I love it. I will say it's. I like being the boss. I like being the boss at work.
Be a director or of any sorts. I'm an actor. I'm a vessel, and
Yes.
please, and I don't like being married to stuff. So please tell me what you need, and I will
Except for
happily.
me. You like being married to me, though, right?
Yes.
But it is whenever we do get the opportunity, we actually in all of this time haven't gotten to play opposite each other a whole lot. We've gotten to do some things together, but we haven't gotten to.
We've gotten to dance together a lot.
We've gotten to dance
as
together.
As far as getting to do a play and like, oh, I'm playing opposite of my significant other. I don't think that's ever happened.
We played the closest I think was Babette and Lumiere.
Yes.
We played Babette and Lumiere together in Beauty and the Beast, and that was so much fun. But any chance that we get to act together and perform together, we played Billy and Velma in Chicago. Yeah, so we're kind of together. But it's really great fun. Yeah. It's really great fun. We're very fortunate that we not only love each other, but we like each other.
Truth. And that's not always synonymous.
Aw.
I know, I'm making people puke at this point.
That was cute. And you like each other. That was cute. So this might be more of a question than if you were to play opposite each other, but what about like work-life balance? Because it's so easy, since you're both working together, it's so easy to bring it home and continue discussing it and continue. So do you have any ground rules in place to try and help with that, or is it not really an issue?
No, I mean we do talk about it a lot in the house, but it's healthy. Like, you know, we'll come home, unwind, have a glass of beer, have a glass of wine, and talk about like what the process was today, and in a healthy way for the most part. You know,
sometimes there are topics that we have to put like a 15-minute time limit on, you know?
Right.
Sometimes there are some things that we can talk about it for 15 minutes and then we're going to move on with our day.
Right. I'd like to say that everything was all sunshine and roses and days and stuff, but, you know, there's frustrations in any job, and, you know, like the energy, it's like, great, we'll vent about this problem right now for 10 minutes and then we're going to move on.
Yeah.
And having a little one that takes our attention in the best sort of way really helps us to stay grounded. It helps us to stay focused on what is the most important thing. And whenever we're all spinning out in a million different directions, coming back to the base, and Max really helps us stay grounded in that way.
Mm-hmm. Truth.
Great answers. I love your lives. Thank you. We do too. It's tough. There's plenty of stuff that's tough. Please don't get me wrong.
Definitely a lot of obstacles, but so worth it. So worth, it's
very fulfilling.
The journey. Yeah.
So during pandemic, you guys, everyone at the Barter, it seems like, got very creative with their time and with how to continue producing material during that time. So I like I told you before we went live, I have so many things to ask you about, and we only have so much time.
Yes.
But I did want to ask you for a second about Ashley. You got very into the history of the Barter Theater during pandemic.
Yes.
So can you tell me a little bit about the YouTube series you were producing? Actually, can you tell me a little bit about the history of the Barter Theater?
Yeah, I'd love to. Back when in pandemic times, Barter took some time to sort of take stock of some of the things we have. We've got a great trove of archives. We've got the Barter Theater was started back in 1933 by Robert Porterfield, who was a guy who was native, like Bob Porterfield's just a guy. He was a native of Southwest Virginia, went up to New York, had a fairly successful acting career. And then when the Great Depression hit, there was no work to be had, much like the times we find ourselves in now. So there was no work to be had. So in 1933, Robert brought down a group of his friends, actors, technicians, back home to Southwest Virginia and started this thing called the Barter Theater. And ticket and for extra produce. The farmers down here had lots and lots of extra produce, that people didn't have the money to buy. So a ticket was 40 cents or the equivalent in produce or goods. And
It's
so
barter
your
theater.
unused goods you could barter for, you could buy a laugh for your food. And that was how Robert Porterfield got his people down here. He said, I'll feed you. I can't pay you, but I can feed you. So I actually have it pulled up right here. What exactly they got at the end of the first season? The barter company cleared $4.35 in cash, 2 barrels of jelly, and a collective weight gain of over 300 pounds. They donated. Someone donated a live pig that they named Hamlet. He became the mascot. So from the beginning, barter was deeply entrenched and embedded with the community. They were integral to each other's success. And even now to this day, we still have barter days where you can buy your ticket with a donation of canned goods, and that goes to Feeding Southwest Virginia. So we pair closely with local food banks here and stuff. So it's a really wonderful legacy to be a part of. Robert Porterfield was also integral in starting the regional theater movement. He won the very second year that the Tony Awards ever happened. Robert Porterfield won what is considered the first regional Tony Award for his work at the Barter and bringing theater to such underserved communities. So we're really proud to be part of that legacy. And
That is really cool.
today,
Well, and tell me, so you started a YouTube series, Archives with Ashley.
Yes. So while we were going through the archives, I just found there are just all these treasures and all these wonderful stories that, even though I've been here for 15 years, stories that I didn't know about. So combing through, I was able to find a lot of really interesting things, and it also gave us some programming in a time when it was really tough. So I've talked about like Barter's war effort. Robert Porterfield himself, this was one of my favorite ones. Robert Porterfield himself was during World War II. Barter had to shut down during World War II because so many of its people were enlisted into the war effort and everything. So Robert Porterfield actually joined. I won't remember exactly what the unit is called, but joined of the military, their filmmaking unit. So to put out all of their films about how to buy war bonds and all of those sorts of things. So he was involved in that, and then brought a bunch of people here to Abingdon and held a war rally, and the people brought food and money and whatever they could. It was a huge thing in town. So getting to learn all these different bits and pieces. When Ernest Borgnine was here, they toured Hamlet to Elsinore Castle. I mean, just amazing thing. We've got a picture of Ernest Borgnine standing there with his arm up, waiting to get his shots so he can go over, so that he
Oh,
can
the parallels! I can't even the parallels to today.
a little strange, right? But to see that wonderful history, I mean, so many wonderful actors have come through here too. Gregory Peck is one of our most famous alums. Patricia Neal. I won't think of all of them right now, but really, really wonderful actors have come through here too.
And the show that was Archives with Ashley
Okay.
was born out of the community wanting something. They wanted to know, like, where is everybody? Where are the Barter people? Like, are y'all okay? Can we, any way that we can connect? And the kind of show was like, hey, she's going through this. Let's make it a show, and it's a way that we can still connect with our audiences.
Absolutely. And so I love, we've kind of come full circle because you talk about this symbiotic relationship between the community of Abingdon and the theater.
Yes.
And you kind of talked about how you first came to Barter and you felt that pretty quickly, I think.
Yes.
And now you look back at this history and it's even deeper than you at first realized. I mean, this has been going on since the Barter's founding.
Really.
It is an incredible legacy, absolutely. And how cool that you guys get to be a part of it now.
Yeah, and even in its time, Barter is only on its fourth producing artistic director in its existence.
We're heading into our 89th season.
Yeah, and in 89 years, only 4 people have ran this theater. So it's
right.
people
are dedicated to it.
Yeah, very much so.
So and that was only one. Like I said, it seems like everybody at the Barter got very creative during the pandemic. That was only one example. You also started producing outdoor theater at a old drive-in movie theater.
That's right.
So
You know
heading out,
about that?
heading out toward the outskirts of town, there was always this beautiful drive-in that through the years had deteriorated and deteriorated. You know, and Katie Brown, our new producing artistic director, had this idea in her head going, what if we did outdoor drive-in theater? What if we renovated the old drive-in, built a stage on shipping containers, and did live theater?
And again, this was another full community effort. You know, our local sponsors here, our local season sponsors, Food City, which is a big grocery store here, donated the shipping containers so that we could build a stage up on it.
The woman who owns the Moonlight had zero intention of ever renovating it or reopening it. She was wanting to sell the land and, you know, by God, you know, whatever happens to what happens. But in talking to Katie, Katie was able to be like, can we lease this space? Can we create this? And she was like, okay, we're in unprecedented times. You can lease the space, and decided to reopen. So yeah, everyone chipped in.
I always say limitations breed creativity, and I think this is just such a cool example of this. I mean, it's only too bad that it took a pandemic to think of this. It's such a genius idea.
Yes, the concept of it is that not only, you know, there is a performance that happens on stage, and then we've got two camera operators that are filming it live, and then it's simulcast on the big screen, and then the sound is piped into your car by a radio station, by, you know, like just one that just reaches the small local area.
So much.
So the coordination, the things that we've learned while we call it producing theater on the moon. It's called the Moonlight, you know, but it really is. Yes, it really is producing on the moon.
So I actually have a clip of the Barter team prepping the Wizard of Oz at the Moonlight Drive-In. So I think this is in July of 2020. Does that sound right? Okay.
That's right. I served as choreographer for that production.
Oh, cool. Okay. And the clip is from another Barter YouTube series called Backstage at the Barter, and it's hosted by Terrance Jackson, who is another resident actor.
He's actually he is one of our marketing team members, but he has been in the acting company before.
He's just, like a lot of people, he has worn several different hats in his time here.
Okay, so this is Backstage at the Barter, hosted by Terrance Jackson, talking about the Wizard of Oz at the Moonlight Drive-In. Enjoy.
Everyone, Terrance here from Backstage at Barter, and today I'm bringing you along with me to our tech rehearsals of Wizard of Oz at the Moonlight Drive-In. So let's go.
Does everybody have their mics?
Yes.
Cool. If you want to power your mics on now, you can go ahead and do that.
What?
See the Wizard of Oz. It's gonna be gorgeous.
That is like one of the most creative things I've seen in theater since the pandemic. Really cool.
I'm so
So-
happy that you enjoyed
Yeah,
it.
we're mighty proud of the Moonlight.
And all of those actors that you saw on the stage there agreed to live as we called them our quarantine. They lived in company housing. No one was allowed to come and go from there. They agreed to live fully quarantined. So that's how they were able to be on stage together unmasked. It was a lot for them to agree to, but well worth it.
That makes it even more theater on the moon.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, to the point where like they weren't even allowed to go inside buildings to go grocery shopping. They had to do curbside. Everything was curbside. So they sacrificed a lot to be able to bring art to the region.
Yeah. Absolutely. We applaud them. Absolutely. So now you're back to some indoor programming.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Producing some theater at the Moonlight, right? That's continued.
Mm-hmm.
We are, since there are still a lot of restrictions. We wanted our audiences to be able to have whatever experience they felt comfortable with. So we're still offering, our barter players are doing a kids show out there for the holidays, TYA, and we've also got an adult show out there. So they do double troubles on the weekends. So you got the kids show first, and then we got 12 dates of Christmas out there. And then in our space, in our main stage space, the Gillum Theater, we're doing A Christmas Story, which both Sean and I are in. I play Helen Weathers.
We are the oldest children you will ever see on a stage.
The oldest students. But it's been wonderful to be back in this space. Our audience are shown that they're hungry for it. They're willing to jump through whatever hoops it takes to be safe in the theater, and we've been so grateful for their willingness to do that. And we've been really grateful to our producing artistic director Katie Brown for making the tough decisions to keep everybody as safe as possible. So we've been really grateful for it.
Absolutely. Well, as we're wrapping up, if any of our audience has a question, please feel free to put it in the comment section of YouTube or Facebook, and we'll see it and pass your question on to Ashley and Sean. But Ashley and Sean, thank you so much for joining me. First of all, it was such a pleasure to have you guys on and learn more about all you do at the Barter. Be sure to all our listeners, be sure to check out the Barter Theater. You can subscribe to them on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. There is so much great content coming from there. And if you're passing through Abington, Virginia, you can catch Ashley and Sean in A Christmas Story and more.
Yes, please come see us. It's the nicest little town.
Absolutely. You have me very sold. So I know I will be passing through.
Can't wait.
Everything sounds incredible. Thank you so much to our listeners for joining us today. Please be sure to check out singforhope.org/calendar. You can see all of our other programs coming up at 4:00 each day. And don't forget to visit singforhope.org/donate to learn how you can contribute to Open Arts and help us keep going. And otherwise, we will see everybody at a program again soon. Thank you so much, everybody.